Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. The show where each week a panel of respected marketing strategists, all trained and certified by the legendary Dan Kennedy, share their wisdom, experience, strategies, and insights on how to use Dan Kennedy's philosophy on business and marketing in any type of business, and that you can apply to your business immediately. Here's your host, Craig Valine.
Hello, everybody. This is Craig Valine. Welcome to the most incredible marketing show ever. I'm here with my expert panel, my Dan Kennedy certified independent business advisors, friends, peers, experts, awesome people. This month, we're focusing on Dan Kennedy's book, No BS Wealth Attraction in the New Economy. And if you haven't read this book, Dan says this is not a book about making money. This is not a book about creating wealth. Both words, making and creating, reinforce what he calls the work-money link, a limiting idea that we will change, and a change we will break in this month's episodes. Words like make and create suggest that you obtain wealth only through and in proportion to effort exerted. These words imply that wealth primarily comes only through hard work and through extreme exertion. This book and this episode is about attraction of wealth. And Dan has used this word deliberately to make yourself magnetic to money. And so we'll be focusing on 4 different wealth magnets this month. Now, with wealth magnet number 9 in the book, Be Somewhere. So thank you all for being here today. Basically, be somewhere means be everywhere that is relevant, everywhere your ideal customer or clients are, and be omnipresent in those environments. Let's start with Mark. Mark, make sure you're unmuted. What does omnipresent mean? What does that mean to the entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a buzzword, isn't it? Omnipresent. That's just like being everywhere that you can be. So being everywhere. I see that guy everywhere. Oh my gosh, he's on the grocery carts. He's on the billboards on the street. He's on my YouTube. How do you follow people around and stalk them? That's just being everywhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. Local advertising is easy to do that if you live in a community. I see them on the shopping carts, bus benches, post office, everywhere. How can you do that online, Ben?
Well, one of the ways that's been popular to do it online is by like targeting people who've already seen anything that you do, and then you can start to show up not only in their feeds but on different websites that they visit, and people will be like, I'm seeing you everywhere. And that's just having that visibility is an important part of building your that connection with your audience, building your brand, getting in front of people. So by the time that they are ready to make a purchase decision, they're like, well, I've really seen this person around everywhere. So that's definitely a way to be somewhere. And then I think also that omnipresence of connecting both the online presence with like going out and showing up at things in person. Then people are like, oh, wow, like you're actually like a real person. I can shake your hand. And so if in a previous episode, we talked about sort of the being somebody and about celebrity and all that. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that episode. But this is really a way of taking that celebrity, which is more like conceptual, and then bringing it, it's grounding it. It's being in front of the people, whether online or offline.
Right. Steve, you have the WOW strategy, and one of your letters stands for basically the media. It's like in a lot of local business owners advertise in media that may not be perfect for them, and they become advertising victims. Talk about why it's important to be in the right places.
Who is this guy? Who's in charge? I'm on mute again. What's the matter? I got to get my assistant in here. So that's the last letter of the WOW strategy. The W stands for the ways that you communicate with people. And so you just talked about being everywhere. Or how do you do it online? And Ben mentioned being on everywhere in person. Well, to me, it's not really about being everywhere, as Dan Kennedy teaches. It's being strategically everywhere that's relevant to the people you want to attract. That's what we're talking about here, is magnetically attracting wealth. And so that's being in the right places. So if I just go out shopping and go into a store or a supermarket, that doesn't matter. If I go out and play around the golf, that doesn't matter, since I'm not in the golf industry like Chuck. But I'm in the marketing industry. So when I go to marketing events, marketing conferences, I make sure not just to do the Zoom things and the online, whatever. Get out there, get on a plane, get in the car, get into a hotel room, get to an event. That way I get to put like a page in my brochure of just like solid wall of celebrities we talked about last time. There's me in person with all these celebrities. Like you can only do that by getting out there in person to the right places. And then people say like, wow, now they say you're everywhere. You know everybody. You meet everybody because you got to do things online and offline. You got to be strategic about it. Think about where your market wants you to be and make sure you get
Dan, you probably heard the initials. You can't. Well, I'll spell it out. You can't do business sitting on your ass, which Dan focuses on in this chapter. What does that mean?
Well, it comes back to you got to get out and be visible and make yourself available for opportunities. So I'll give you one example that I had a client that was part of my chapter, and then he was in my mastermind group. And some of you may know him, Ron Sheets. And I kind of had to push him into the mastermind group, and then he finally got on board. And we were at one of Dan's Renegade Millionaire events, and Bill Glazer was there. And I think you mentioned this in the last episode, Craig, about don't be afraid to ask. And after one day, I went up to Bill and I said, Bill, are you doing anything for lunch today? And he looked at me and he kind of smiled. He goes, actually, I'm not. He goes, no one has invited me to lunch. And I think everybody thought he won't be available. Right. And so I had a bunch of my chapter people there. And I said, boy, I'd love to have you have lunch with my chapter. And he just loved that. He was all over it. And I told Ron Sheets I'm going to have lunch with Bill Glazer's going to have lunch with us. So he went along. Bill paid the bill, by the way, and that was nice. But afterwards, Bill came up to me and said, hey, I need a ride back to the hotel. Can you take care of that? And I was going somewhere, and I knew Ron was looking for an opening. And I went up to him and I said, Ron, would you be willing to give Bill Glazer a ride back to the hotel? And his eyes got really big. And he's like, wow, alone time with Bill Glazer. Well, he did. And in that ride, Bill said to him, I told Bill who he was and what he did. He goes, I need a guy locally to do video for Dan. Would you, is that something you might do? And part of it was Bill knew he was a mastermind member. So that elevated his status to Bill and Dan. And Ron said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So he put something together, and Ron to this day is Dan Kennedy's go-to video guy. He video records all of his mastermind events that he has. He does a lot of video for him. Consequently, he gets introduced to Dan's top clients, and he gets jobs with his top clients. That's about being somewhere that for that opportunity. So you got to get off your butt to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. If you're just sitting around working from your laptop all the time, never leaving your office or never leaving your home, you don't get that exposure. And so that's it. Get up, get out, and go do something.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. Richelle, if people are saying, where are my best prospects? Where are my best customers? How would they determine that? How would they find that?
Well, if somebody is saying that, we've done 3 episodes all about how to find them, right? But my favorite thing to do is to do what my friend Owen had talked about in the last episode. And again, if you didn't listen to that one, it was phenomenal. But it is go to charity events, right? And even the charity events that you like, some of your best prospects are going to be there. So even if you don't know, if you have no idea who could be a customer, or if everybody could be a customer, which is a Dan Kennedy no-no, right? You can find 2 at your local charity event. I always tell you to go to the events that are more than $500. Because if you go to the charity events that are under, you've got freeloaders there, right? But ones that are at least $500, you know that everybody paid $500 to get there. They got on a pretty dress. They got on the real pearls, not the fake ones. You know that they're about the charity and invested. They want to be seen. They want to be somewhere. And they are more likely to have free liquor. And when there's free, and when there's free liquor, people love to chat and have conversation. And if you aren't sitting next to the right person, right, you will find the best person there to talk to about exactly what you want. So I love to go to, number one, charity events that are over $500. High-end masterminds are really great to being somewhere because they have connections to other people. And then lastly, like my real favorite place is at events that Steve talked about earlier. Like if you don't go to at least your industry events, man, why are you in business?
Right. You're great at that, Richelle, by the way. You become the OG at these events, and you answer questions in a specific way where people seek you out and ask you questions at those events. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, I learned to I just kind of sit there and wait for somebody to come over and ask me questions, right? Mm-hmm. Or they'll come and say, "Oh, do you? Hi, yeah," and then I'll tell a joke, and then we've got a party.
Awesome. We have to take a quick break for a message from our sponsor. We'll be right back.
This episode of The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever is sponsored by Richelle Shaw and her new book, $1 Million Partnerships. You can grab the $1 Million Partnerships Accelerator Kit at www.milliondollarpartnerships.com. That's www.milliondollarpartnerships.com. Now, back to the show.
So, Joe, who's your target market? How do you place yourself? Where do you put yourself?
My target market is talking to manufacturers. They've got sales teams. They depend on the salesperson to get out there and find the lead and so forth. So I'm talking to them about, obviously that part of it. But how do you market? How do you get your word out about what you provide for a product or services? But basically, one of the things that I've done is gone to, here in the New England area, we'll have some manufacturing shows or distribution shows. One of the keys to going to shows is, obviously walking around and meeting people, letting them know what you do. That's something in general that you can do, and maybe hand them something that says, I have this podcast, or I have this book, and you could download it, etc. Helps you make this, gives more authority to you. The one thing I have done at some shows is got the opportunity to speak. As we all know, they'll have some kind of shows while the trade show is going on that people from the booths can go to, or people that are visiting, walking around can go to. So that also helps with becoming more of an authority on marketing and helping them, helping manufacturers get their word out better. So those are some of the things that I try to aim for. Can I get into that show as a person who can do a presentation and be an authority on that presentation? And also the other part of it is, just walking around and meeting them. And again, it's all going back to where does my market hang out? And I need to get there and meet with them. Just like, we've all been talking about, not, as Dan Cricks said, don't just sit at home, or in your office. You have to get out. So that's what I found works.
Very good. Chuck, do you have an example of a client?
Well, in the chapter, Dan Kennedy talks about that you don't have to be there to be somewhere. Like his books are in the shelves of all of the bookstores. So I've had clients that we've helped do something with a book, and then had them, because they weren't going to be at Barnes and Noble, for instance, go in there and leave their book on the shelf in their appropriate section, even though they weren't part of it, which was always kind of fun because someone would find it. But for this section, I'd like to also comment about, be somewhere is also a place strategy. And sometimes the place is not where you'd be expected. Dan had a quote in there from Texas Bix Bender in that chapter. Just because you're following a well-marked trail don't mean whoever made it knew where the hell they were going. I think that's pretty good. One time, as an example, when I was in the golf business and all the golf equipment retailers were everywhere that was around golf, I decided to do something different. I did a booth at a home show. And of course, the guys are being drugged around by the nose by their wives to look at all this crap that they're supposed to buy for the home. So my place was a hit because I had a little putting green set up and the guys could putt and all of that. I couldn't take much inventory there to sell. So I just took a business card that had my locations on it and said, hey, you want some new golf shoes? Here's a coupon for 10% off. You want a new driver? I can do 12% off on that 12-degree driver you want, or whatever. And the stores did a ton of business because of all the stacks of cards used as coupons. So that was an example of a play strategy where you were somewhere where you weren't expected that really worked.
That's great. That was really good. One of the best advice I took from Dan was kind of an omnipresent thing. How can you be in as many places as possible at the same event, right? So I had gone to a trade show, and so we had a table outside in the lobby. We had a gift in the gift bag. We were up on the screen. We got stage time, 10 minutes to talk about our business. We had a suite afterwards. And so there wasn't one person in that room who didn't know who we were and didn't seek us out for more information about that. And so I've used that with my client, the guy, especially the World of Concrete. So we walk through the World of Concrete and they call out his name and like, how do you know me? Like, how do we not know you? It's because he's always there and he's omnipresent. And so what a powerful, powerful strategy. We have to get wrapped up here. So I want to go around and get your number one tip on being somewhere. Steve, let's start with you. 20 seconds or less.
I said it before, I'll say it again. It's not about being everywhere. It's about being everywhere in a strategic way. So that what we heard about here earlier is people, just like Mark said, start saying, I see you everywhere. I always love when people say that, I see you everywhere, when I know I am purposely not everywhere. I'm everywhere that the people that I want to see me will think I'm everywhere, because I'm everywhere that they are.
Awesome. Richelle, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
My favorite is to be online and do retargeting. I know it's crazy and everybody's like, what are you talking about? But I use testimonials in my retargeting at $1 a day. And people go, I see your ads everywhere. I see it where I play my Candy Crush. My kid says, who is this Richelle person? So I love to use that $1 a day retargeting strategy.
Awesome. Mark, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
Want to prevent a mistake that a lot of people make. If you serve people in different audiences, don't be lazy and don't have one generic message. I'll give you a quick example. In our business in publishing books for professionals, I recently sponsored Podfest, and our banner says, be the podcast host everybody loves. Next month, I'll be sponsoring in San Diego, the Legal Marketing Association. The banner there is customized to say, be the lawyer everybody loves. Customize your message for each audience so they feel like you're speaking specifically to them.
That's excellent. Thank you. Dan, final tips, 20 seconds or less.
Yeah, so something I like to use is for my target market is I'll look at Facebook groups in that particular niche, and I'll join those groups. And I like, for one, just to have a presence and sometimes answer questions that they have going on, but to get to see what their struggles are, their challenges are, and what their pain points are. And that allows me to, as Mark said, really customize the message. And a while back in the repair industry, business was so good they didn't need help marketing, but they did need help finding employees. And so I kind of shifted a little bit because I heard that pain point over and over and over again on some of these Facebook groups. And so I put a product together to help them do that.
Awesome. Very good. Owen, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
Uh, to reiterate a thing that Chuck spoke about, there's a lot of money to be made in being in less obvious places that are chosen wisely. Right. So as an artist, and I live in Alberta, Canada, which is, it's the third largest oil reserves in the world up here. So the oil industry is huge, and I specialized in doing vintage oil well scenes. Well, that meant instead of trying to get into galleries and going to those dumb art shows where everybody swans around with cheap wine and doesn't buy anything, I came up with AB offers, and I went to oil shows. Now the oil shows can be expensive unless you have a relationship with the company that hosts them. That's another show. But how many other artists do you think are at these oil rig shows? Approximately.
Right.
Yeah, none. Me. And so, and I had the message to market match dialed in. And I smiled, Chuck, when you said that, because I had the exact opposite effect, because there was a whole bunch of wives being trucked through this thing that didn't want to be there. And it's like, finally something, okay, it's a drawing of a 1950s oil rig, but it's something, right? And so we there's a million ways to work a trade show, but yeah, I have no legitimate, and I'm not saying this to brag. Yes, I am. I have no legitimate competition from other artists because they're not where I am. I'm where the customers are, not where the middlemen are in the galleries and all the rest of it.
Yeah, that just was featured in episode 10, where we talked about the jeweler and the attorney or the financial advisor at the horse auctions.
Same thing. Yeah, I didn't make that up. Clearly,
no. That's why we're here, to communicate that. Joe, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
It's just like we've been saying all along. You've got to go where they hang out. If it's on LinkedIn, if it's on Facebook, if it's going to trade shows, you need to be up there. And if that means being interactive in a LinkedIn group for medical manufacturers, like Dan had said, he was doing it with Facebook, then you have to do that. You have to be involved. You have to provide advice. Just don't ignore the group and throw something out there once in a while that's like you're trying to sell something. You want to become that authority.
Chuck, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
Well, you started this off by the initials that were on Dan's father's cufflinks, where you can't do business sitting on your ass. That was the acronym for it. And the point is, you got to be somewhere. Think about it strategically, like everybody's talked about. You cannot sit at home unless everything you're doing is on social media. And I believe in all of the above, like everybody else does. Be present online, but also be present in person so people can see you.
Excellent. Ben, final tip, 20 seconds or less.
Yeah. So question to my fellow panelists: for just showing up at an event, like just as an attendee at an event, raise your hand if you can attribute a significant portion of the opportunities, of the wealth you've attracted and all that to just showing up at that event. Yeah. 80% of success is just showing up.
Excellent. I would say two things. Number one is, diversity creates stability. So the more events, the more places you can show up, the more stable your business will be. But also, what do they read? What do they watch? Where do they go? Where do they congregate? All those types of things. You got to answer those questions in advance and focus on unobvious places, like Owen said. So this was a fun episode. So thank you so much for everybody being here. Thank you for everybody for watching. This is the most incredible marketing show ever. We meet every Thursday. And you can get a free gift from all our expert panelists at mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. That's mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. We'll see you on our next episode next Thursday. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us this week on The Most Incredible Marketing Show Ever. New episodes are available every week on Thursdays. To receive a free gift pack from our expert panelists and get access to show notes from previous episodes, be sure to visit our website, www.mostincrediblemarketingshowever.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button and click the bell up in the right-hand corner to be notified of future episodes so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you clicking the like button and leaving a comment on what big aha you got during the show. That's it for today's episode. See you next week.